Greetings, listeners and viewers. Your host tonight, Zach, here introducing you to Spacers, a sci-fi podcast by Twisted Gears Studios. We're back. If you just listened to our last episode with the cliffhanger ending, well, sorry for one more delay. You're about to listen to another Session 0. With it being such a long hiatus, when coming back, we opted to switch to a new game system that doesn't really rely so heavily on visuals for the gameplay mechanics to actually function. As such, we had to make some changes to our characters, as well as a change to a few of the world things around that. We're almost there. The story will continue soon. If you've been following the call 1973, we had a dice raffle. For this arc, I'm using a dice set from our friends over at Dark Matter Dice, complete with glow-in-the-dark high faces and a D2 coin. Same as before, for each month that you are subscribed to the Creative Collaborator tier or higher on our Ko-fi page, you'll be entered into a raffle for which I will then pull your name at the end of this arc. But for now, join us as we recap and set the record straight as to where we will be returning to our characters.
Fantastic. I think I've done all that right. It's funny because I'm the one that told Rob how to do it, and I was just like, cool, you know it so that I don't gotta remember it.
I mean, that's fair, actually.
Is it?
A little bit.
Hello.
Hi.
Sorry, should I do this the right
Hello
way?
there. I can't help myself.
Hello there.
Nope, do it again.
Yeah, that didn't quite.
No, that's good. I like it. I like it. You got your own spin. It's almost like it's a redux.
Anyway, moving on. So, things look different now. This looks fancy, you know. It's mirrored.
Oh, who wants to do them?
I'm not used to being here. I've never been out of as a player.
You haven't had width. You've been very narrow.
Yeah.
you're in little box.
Yeah.
Now,
With my hands
Now you're in a
everywhere.
rectangle.
Now it's Zach's turn to put his hands in people's faces.
I can poke Derek and Lindsay.
At the same time.
That sounds like real fun.
Thanks.
Anyway.
Oh, dang it.
I'm usually the one making those jokes.
Well, I'm sitting over here now, so
You gotta reach across the front of the table.
Yeah,
I'm not bound by the law
I'm
of
short.
respectability.
Okay, come back to that.
Derek and I are sitting together now.
there we go.
We're going to get twice
Thanks,
the
Liz.
vulgarity.
Twice vulgarity is a kid's show.
This side of the table is going to be vulgarity.
Not anymore.
I'm not-
Not a minute.
I was going to say.
I'm not bound by the laws of respectability.
It's going to be
I
heavy
respect
vulgar
that.
on this side.
Oh, my God.
I'm
Alright.
so sorry.
I don't have my gavel, so I'm gonna use this red
I think
card.
this stopped being child friendly when Greg was running around with no pants on.
Well, if you want to use a red card,
What does this look like to you? What does this look like? Fucking green?
the red card.
It's a fucking. I have a gavel.
Yeah.
I just don't have it here with me,
That's fine.
which is a me problem. Okay, we're gonna get started here. I'm the arbiter, and I need to be controlling this mess. All right, hello. So, as some of you may know, we play Spacers sometimes. It's been a hot minute since we have. And as such, for those that may have missed out on the news, we are changing game systems. So what this means is the story is going to essentially stay exactly the same. We're going to continue this forward. And even though we're adding in video, we don't want to be in the position where so many instances where we come to play this game, two things end up happening. The visual need for maps, if we were to provide that to make it easier for us, it would make it harder for you to understand what's going on, right? And even though we have visuals and video, we do want to try and keep things audio friendly, as that is the audience we started with. That's the audience we're going to be keeping going forward. So
Thank you.
with that, and also the fact that it is very numbers crunchy, hence the need for the visuals of where people are sitting with maps, we're going to change things up a bit. There's been a game system that I have been playtesting my own version of for about 5 years now. I think it's a good place to start putting it into a stream, so that's what we're going to do today. So essentially what we're doing is everyone who's at the table right now is going to be maintaining the same characters they have that you are used to in Spacers. We're just going to remake their character sheets for this new game system. We're going to build them from scratch as a group, so that way you, the audience, can also kind of be a part of what is going on. You'll understand what the rules are, and also kind of generally how to start your own, if you would like to play your own, and kind of generally follow along with that. There are parts of the generation that we are going to be skipping. I will be explaining those as we go through so that players understand and then the viewers can understand what would go here and why we're skipping it. The world already exists, and that's the major thing we're going to be skipping over. That's the big thing. So we are going to be going through each of the sections of the character sheet that you have in front of you, so that way you know what all the parts of the sheet that you are dealing with, so you're able to make informed decisions. One of the things that always upset me whenever I was making a character sheet is DM's not telling me what the sheet was, and so as I go through, I'm like, oh, well, if I had known that this was that, I would have made these choices, right? So we're going to go through each of these sections so you understand how the game fundamentally works, so you can build your character with that in mind. Okay? So, the top left of your character sheet, you have your attributes, very similar to D&D or to Starfinder, is you have your 6 characteristics. I'll have a...
I know, but I want to point it at things.
Oh,
I want
okay.
to point at things.
You can point at things.
Hashtag
We'll also
Team
have
Station
Vanna
Board.
White over here displaying everything.
Hashtag
So,
Team
you got the attributes. Put them all at 6 right now. Okay? So, all of your attributes right now will be at a D6. You may select 2 of these attributes right now to be at a D8. And notice how I'm not using numbers, I'm using dice. The way that Cortex Prime, the game system that we're using, the way that it functions is everything is dice. Even if you're really good at something, there is a chance for critical failure. You are not 18 at strength every time you do something. And it's not just based off of the role of the single action. That performance, you have a greater ability to succeed, but you also can still fail. So you have strength, which is your physical strength. You have vitality, which is your physical resistances, kind of your constitution equivalent. Your agility is your dexterity equivalent, speed. Alertness, which is your ability to focus and pay attention, how quick you can see things. Your intelligence, which is your brain smarts, and your willpower, your mental fortitude when resisting things. 2 things to note about attributes. They are broken up into 2 groups of 3. There are 3 physical, strength, vitality, and agility. And there are 3 mental, alertness, intelligence, willpower. Generally speaking, the opposite of strength, if someone's using strength against you, vitality is typically the opposing bit. If someone's using agility against you, typically alertness is the opposing. And similarly, intelligence and willpower are resistances to each other. That's not a hard and fast rule, but usually when we're creating dice pools, which we'll explain later, that is kind of the way of it. So Cliptic, if you're going to be casting spells with somebody, you will often be using intelligence to initiate the action and willpower to defend yourself against other people's actions.
Yeah, because you told me to pick 2 that it can be 8.
8s? That makes
Yes.
sense that those 2 would be 8 for you.
That would, yes.
Yes. So we'll come back to this, but that's so right now right off the bat, all of them at 6 except 2. Pick 2 to be at 8.
Perfect.
Next on down, distinctions. We'll fill these in later. We're going to be going through an actual process to get these all filled out, but these are just something to get your minds thinking about right now. Also, we will be coming back. These are not your final attribute stats. Your attributes will flex again, but we're not in character creation yet. This is just where you start.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Distinctions. Think of 3 descriptive qualities about your character, such as is brawny, or is scrawny, or is a big brain thinker, likes to work by themselves. Distinctive sentences that if you were to describe your character to someone in the world, a thing that you would describe about your character is like, yeah, that makes sense. That's what distinctions are. We'll come back to those.
Tony
get
Stark
used.
is the center of attention.
Yeah, so when that trait about yourself is relevant, that distinction will be a part of that check. So just 3 things to think about that. We'll come back to that. Initiative is going to be determined by when you make your characteristics. We actually do roll initiative in this version of this game system.
Liz isn't doing it.
Sorry.
You're fired!
Oh no!
You're done! You're done!
Damn it, Vanna.
Yeah, damn it.
Hero dice. When we roll for stats in the game, for any challenge in the game, there are 2 different kinds of encounters you will come across. Opposed situations and static situations. If I'm kicking in a door, that door is not actively trying to stop me from kicking it open. It just is either brittle or not. So there will be a number I will tell you. It's like that sounds like a very challenging thing to do, to kick open a steel door with your bare feet. Challenging requires you to beat an 11. If it was kicking a person who can defend themselves, they will roll to set the difficulty for you based off of their own abilities to protect themselves. If you succeed at a roll by 5 or more, that is a critical success. That is a heroic success. When you're rolling dice, we'll get to the specifics of this later. You use multiple dice to roll. Whatever dice aren't used to make your final check, you have the ability to use one of those leftover dice as a benefit. If you heroically succeed, that benefit can be stored in your hero dice section to use at a later date with something we'll talk about later.
Sure, sounds good.
So that's how you can stockpile those. And you keep those for as long as you'd like. You can't have more than one of each die type, but you can stockpile a 12, a 10, an 8, a 6, and a 4,
Nice.
which are the only dice that we use in this game system. No 20s, but literally everything else. The way you use this is through the next part of the sheet, which is plot points. And this is the way that people that are supporting the show can influence the game, is through plot points. If you are benefiting players, there is a pool of coins up here for them. They will pull a coin with your name on it. They will say, thank you, this person, and that will allow them to do heroic things like using hero dice. That's how you would spend hero dice. We'll go more into that later.
Yeah.
This coin is like a pirate doubloon.
I bought a bunch of Pirates of the Caribbean doubloons
Awesome.
back when that was a thing, so...
We love a good doubloon.
There's lots of pirate treasure on this table. I don't know where that...
I mean, where would that even come from?
Very out of character for me.
Yeah.
Similarly, the DM or the GM also has plot points. My plot points will also come from my own pool, kind of like the bonus dice for Derek in our other show, The Call, which I will also have names and I can use to fuck with players. More on that at a later date.
I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that the person running the game should have that power.
I'm going to throw a dice at you.
No! I'm weak and brittle, like the door you mentioned earlier.
We'll come back to that.
Sorry, yeah. Continue.
All right, next up on the sheet is the life points. This one I'm going to explain pretty in depth because it's actually not as simple as it should be, but once it's explained, it makes perfect fucking sense. So, your life points will be based off of your vitality and your willpower. So, if you have a D6 vitality and a D6 willpower, your health is 12. 6 plus 6.
Makes sense.
The two dice numbers, right? So your maximum health is 12. There are 3 types of damage in the game: wound, stun, basic. The number never really changes. Just leave that number there once you have the number. It's the pips that are on the sheet you're going to want to use to track your health points.
Makes sense.
So whereas traditionally if I have 12 health and I get dealt 6 points of damage, I just put a 6 next to it and either I'm going to 0 or up to 12, however you do that. This focuses more on threshold, so it goes up to 12. Start from 0 and work your way up. Don't go from the top and work your way down. I know that sounds weird, but I'll explain why in a second. Wound damage is only dealt to wounds. Stun damage is only dealt to stun. Basic damage is divided between the two. Most things deal basic damage. So if you have 12 health, and I hit you for a basic attack of 6, you get dealt 3 wound, 3 stun. Mark it down on your pips. As soon as you have 12 pips ticked off that equal to or exceed 12, you have been removed from the encounter. This does not mean you are unconscious per se. It means that there is something impeding your ability to maintain your function in the scene. So it could be that you are like, you're still functioning, but you're like, fuck, I can't get back in the fight, right? You're just leaning against the wall. You can't do it for physical or mental reasons, however you wish to explain that.
Oh, I love that.
But you are not unconscious. You're still a functioning member. You just cannot participate in the scene. Once all party members of an active encounter from one side or the other are ineligible to continue, the other side, if that's the case, is deemed the victor in that case, right? And that is, I should clarify, if any of your pips, when you're counting them up, are in stun. If even one pip is in stun, you are not unconscious. If you hit 0 or hit your threshold, you are just unable to continue until you've been healed. If none of your points are in stun, if 100% of the damage you've been dealt is in wounds, and you reach that 12 number in this example, you are unconscious. You are physically unable to maintain consciousness, and you will begin dying. You will maintain gaining additional wounds once per turn, every turn, until the death threshold, which is negative what your health is. So if your health is 12, and you ever reach negative 12 wounds, you are dead. That's how that works. Healing wound and strain. Healing strain, super easy. You can literally take an action during a combat encounter if you wanted to concentrate, just and the amount you succeed by is how many strain you get back. Super easy, and you can do that as many times as you like. But just remember, the wounds stay. So in that example, I get dealt 6 points of damage out of 12. I relax, I heal 3 strain, let's say. I still maintain the 3 wounds. I get dealt 6 damage again. I'm at 6 wounds, 3 stun. Now I'm at 12 again. I'm out again.
All right.
Yes.
Right? And you can be brought back again with strain. That's easy. Wounds, heal at 1 per long rest.
Cool.
Okay.
Yep.
Or through medical means, you can heal a bunch of them at a time. Right. So if someone is a medical aficionado, highly useful in this game system, very, very beneficial. There are methods to gain bulk wounds back in a single hit, but your body is only able to use so many of them in the run of a day. But a medical practitioner is required to heal faster than that. So I know that was a lot of time spent on life points. It's kind of a big deal, which is why combat encounters in this game go super quick. Very, very, very fast. Because health pools are fairly realistic. Guns, I mean, depending when you start seeing where your skills are going, your skills can be in the Ds of 8s and 10s. I mean, at some point you might be getting dealt 6 points of damage. Is possible. That's half of an average person's health.
Yeah.
So anyway, just moving on. It's kind of more like Call of Cthulhu in that way, in terms of the your bodily resistance. There you go. We'll talk more about how to stay alive later, but that's basic health.
Surprise, getting shot hurts.
It's not great. None of this plus 40 to your dice rolls. None of that happening in this.
I
hate
like
it so much.
I do like the fact that even if you're stunned, you are not unconscious, because I'd hate to think that Greg wouldn't be able to share his opinion with everyone. He couldn't take part.
I was thinking of
Absolutely.
like a soliloquy. Just think, being like, A2
Yes.
space thing.
Well done.
Although, while we're on the life point section, I'm going to go back to attributes very briefly because we're talking about staying alive. On attributes, you will see that there is the dice section where you pick what your attribute actually is. And there's a stress section underneath it for each one. You can also gain complications, I'll get into those later, that are not based on your health, right? So getting a broken arm does not necessarily mean you received wound damage. You can still function and fight through a broken limb, right? The plot dictates whatever a character needs to do, right? As long as you can push through. If you drank a lot of plot that morning, well, then I guess you're going to fight through a broken limb. That's fine.
I always make sure to sprinkle some extra plot on my breakfast cereal.
Let's die hard our way through this.
Carnation Instaplot.
Stress is a complication that has exceeded what is permissible in, like, D12 is the highest you can get for a complication. If you exceed it, it becomes a stress. So a sprained limb can become a broken limb, can become a severed limb, can become a physical trauma for your character, right? If it's a limb that's been removed, your strength is probably permanently stressed, right? That can be removed by having a prosthetic. It can be removed by growing something new, right? Like, there are ways to remove it. But from now on, whenever you use strength, that use your arms, this will be added to the difficulty of whatever you do because you're down an arm, as an example, right? PTSD, anxiety, all of these are factors that can be involved in your characteristics. If you're getting dealt like lots of mental damage, has the risk of having willpower stress. So that's another thing that you can have full health and still be taken out of a scene if a complication exceeds, it's just too much for you in that moment. You're not necessarily in death process, but you cannot continue, right? So just as an explanation, there's another way to be removed from the scene.
Perfect.
I should just have no willpower dice for Greg just right now.
Just willpower
Just, like,
stress. D6
Make a willpower
immediately.
roll. I can't. I literally can't.
It's a
No.
Your willpower is a negative D6.
Rough.
Yeah.
That would suck. Okay, next is skills and specialties. This one's not going to take too long. Skills are either a D4. You have a D4 in everything.
Yay!
Guaranteed you have a D4 in everything. That's the lowest possible die. D4
Baller.
is incompetent.
Oh.
I was like, baller!
D6 is competent.
Yay!
D8 is talented. D10 is masterful. D12 is practically god tier.
So, Greg.
The scale in this game is astronomical. So a D4 sized thing is like something that can go into your pocket. A D6 sized thing is a person. A D8 sized thing is a bus or a vehicle. A D10 sized thing is a capital sized starship. And a D12 sized thing is a celestial body, like a planetoid, right? That's how the scaling kind of works in this game in terms of sizes. Right? We only have the 5 dice to go with. So just keep that in mind that if you're feeling like your character's not progressing very quickly, your progression is going to feel a lot slower than it would be in a traditional game because there's only so fast you can go. Why am I mentioning this? Because skills only go to a D6. Once you have a D6 in a skill, let's go with, so Greg, if you have a D6 in a firearms skill, let's say long arms or small arms.
I was going to say, Greg with a long arm. I'm imagining Greg with the pole arm, and it's great.
So you get a small arm, right? So it goes up to 6. Once your skill is at a 6, you may then specialize in that skill. Specializations require a skill to be a D6, and then you can have a D8, a D10, and a D12 in specializations. For example, if you have a pistol and you have a D10 specialization in that pistol, you know pistols well enough that if you were to pick up a random pistol or a random small arm, you are D6 competent in any small arm you pick up, but you're D10 competent in this specific one you've been using. Or the specific category that you've been using, right?
Yeah.
So if shotguns are your thing, you generally know how a sniper works, but you will not be as effective as you would be at a shotgun.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the idea behind how skills and specialties work. I have an entire list of skills and specialties. This is not a exhaustive list. You can customize and build whatever you want. Generally speaking, as long as it's not breaking the game, my answer will usually be yes to things. One of the great things about Cortex is that if you have an idea, the answer is yes. Just do it. You can flavor things however you'd like. This will make more sense momentarily. That's it. That's skills. Done. Moving on. Go to your next page. Our next page. There's lots of resources for players, but for the most part, it's just kind of a quick page. This is a lot of your equipment stuff. So there's just a general block for writing down equipment you have on your character. Signature assets and relationships are a thing that you spend experience on in the game to curate and create as a character, right? So for instance, if there is like, to use the example of a particular show that maybe I don't want to draw the ire of a particular production company, where a bunch of space cowboys go through and this one guy loves all of his guns, but there's one gun he loves more than the rest of his guns. That particular assault rifle would be a signature asset. If that gun was in anyone else's hands, it would not be as good as if it was in his hands. Right? The gravy rag, I would say, is likely going to be something you're going to create as a signature asset.
Yeah.
Anyone else touches it, gross as hell. You have it, fantastic. Right? Relationships are similar sorts of things when they become relevant. Right? And there's ways to spend plot points where you can create relationships on the fly. Certain talents that allow you to be like, this bartender used to be a war buddy of mine. Cool, he is now a D8 relationship asset for you. There's ways to do that. So that's that section there. There are assets and complications throughout the game. You can create benefits for your allies. Again, the game focuses a lot on plot. How many times have you watched a zombie movie and got frustrated when they go into a sporting goods store, they grab a bat, they use it once, they didn't break it, and then they drop it and leave it? Right? How many times does that happen? In the middle of a scene, you can drop a plot point to just acquire an asset. Hey, I now have this as a weapon, the D6 asset. If you wish to keep it, you must spend another plot point to take that with you beyond that scene, if you created it in that scene. Otherwise, you leave it behind when you proceed. And those assets can end up becoming signature assets. If you really end up loving that bat and start putting nails into it, making a D8 bat, you can do that sort of stuff, right? But that's assets. People can create assets for you in scenes. Complications or vice versa. When you're rolling dice, ones are zeros. There is no ones in this game. If you roll a 1 on a die, that die is not useful. You cannot use it, but I can use it to provide a complication to you. At the cost of I'll give you a plot point for free, for your troubles. But that is now going to be, hey, cool, you kicked the door and there was a 1 in your die roll. You have now sprained your ankle in the process. Next, there's a rule
T-shot.
helper. This is any static numbers I will ever read out to you. If you're not being opposed by something, that's them there. Very easy, challenging, hard, very hard. That's it. The dice that are associated with those difficulties for effect purposes, I will explain when we talk about rolling dice. The scores and the heroic score numbers. So you never even have to know about it. There it is. Plot point helper. These are all different ways that you can spend and earn plot points in the game. The only addition to this is you may also pull from the center of the room to pull a plot point that's been provided to you from people that have paid for such things. You can spend plot points to create assets, as I just mentioned. Upgrade that asset to make it more powerful. So instead of that, you spend a plot point to slam a nail into the bat. Now you have a nail bat. Spend a plot point to allow that asset to be a permanent asset to the party, like I had mentioned. Whenever you're rolling, you're always rolling a minimum of 2 dice, usually more. But you will only ever add 2 dice together to make your final number. You can spend a plot point to add a 3rd die from your pool into that. Or spend a plot point to, and you can do this after you see the result of your roll, this last one, spending a plot point to take a hero die out of your stock of hero dice and add it to the final number. So those are ways that you can use the plot to manipulate your roll. If I have used a plot point on a check, you cannot. If you have used a plot point on a check, I cannot. Only 1 plot point per check. So the defenders get advantage in this situation. Anyone defending has the first dibs on spending a plot point.
Makes sense.
Okay. Earning plot points. Distinctions, we talked about, were D8s. I work alone. So if I'm by myself, I get a D8. But if I choose to say, however, wouldn't it be great if I had a friend with me right now? And I choose to make it a D4 instead. I hinder myself. I get myself a plot point. If you think it's plot relevant for this distinctive quality about you to weaken in this moment, plot point. Absolutely. If you roll a hitch, which is a 1, and I choose to give you a complication, I will pay you in plot points for that pain in your backside. If you give in on a contest, let's say you're in a fight, and you choose to fail the roll and take the hit, you get a plot point.
You do have to choose to do that before you roll.
You do, yeah. You can't roll and be like, I guess I failed anyway. I'll take a plot point. Nope. Nope. You have to look at a check, say, and choose to fail it. You can even look at an insurmountable odd and go, I will choose to fail it. That also counts. Don't throw yourself into I'm going to die situations. You have to be able to spend the plot points, but there's another way to do it. Trigger your own power set limit. I will explain this when we get to power sets, but there's another way to gain plot points. And if I roll a 1 on any of my dice, and I choose to get a benefit from that, you will all get a plot point for it. Right? The number one use for me rolling 1s is if you have complications, you can make your complications better. Like your broken limb is maybe it's not actually that broken. Right? If I roll 1s, you can take away your complications.
Makes sense.
Okay. Currency. There's 5 different units of currency. Some games have multiple currencies like gold, silver, platinum, copper. This game just has credits. Oh no, this game has credits and on scrap. So we'll talk. We're going to talk after we go through the rules. We're going to be talking about how the game rules are going to change a little bit, so that it's a little bit more this game system friendly. We'll talk about that afterwards. And then finally, on this sheet, you have gear effects. Some items have special effects attached to them. Every item can have up to 4 items, four things on them, like basically traits. That's equal to how much of a die rating it is. So a D6 pistol, you can put 1 special effect on it. You find a gunsmith and you can add a special effect to it. We'll talk about those in a bit. If it's a D8, then you can add a second. A D10 is a third, a D12 is a fourth. So you're limited to the number of slots based off of how high quality that item is. That makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Limit is basically whatever prevents the use of this object. It will make more sense with powers. Typically, limits on items are having the item. If you don't have the item, you cannot use the effects. But some items might say one-time use. That's the limit, right? Or it would never say that. It would say ammo. So if you chose to say, I'm out of ammo, you're choosing to say your thing is hindered, you get a plot point.
Okay.
Now, the DM can also trigger limits. So if I think it's beneficial and I'm willing to give you a plot point for the inconvenience, I might say you're out of ammo. Here's a plot point. I can also, GMs can also trigger these. But players get first kick at the can for doing it. Just keep that in mind. Moving on to the second to last sheet, but the last real character sheet. Power sets and talents. Power sets are where we're going to be spending quite a bit of time during your character creation. This is the closest thing to classes you would be familiar with in traditional TTRPGs. A power set. I'm going to use the tried and true lame duck character Superman. Superman has a power set known as being a Kryptonian. Okay? Every power set has up to 6 abilities that can be put into it. So his superhuman strength at a D12. Superhuman speed at a D12. You're all going to see where I'm going with this in a second here because he's broken. Heat vision. Let's just say he's young Superman, so it's a D6, right? So you can have 6 of these abilities that are associated with being a Kryptonian. Okay? I have a particular list for how to create power sets based off of species. So if you are a particular race of a creature, there's a special effect that there is a power set that comes along with being a race of something. There are power sets assigned to if you are a Solarian, right? What was a Solarian in Starfighter? If you were an operative, like if these class-based abilities, where you acquire these powers, come from would be a power set, right? So any spells that Cliptic would have associated with being a nomad, perhaps instead of being a mystic, maybe you want to rename it to nomad, but these abilities are associated with your time in this profession.
Okay.
And that's where these would go. So you could put like a generic attack spell at D6. The thing with Cortex is you flavor it however you want. It's just attacks. If it's a brain attack, fine. It comes across as just a headache. If it's a lightning attack, fine. You shoot lightning out. But ultimately, you're using a D6.
Okay.
Flavor it however you like.
Pretty sure we picture the same thing as just.
Just throw the brain. Exactly. Right? There's also an
that's gross.
There's also an exhaustive list of. I have created an entire list of possible options for abilities that fall into power sets. Underneath that, you'll see that there are 2 special effects. I've also created an entire list of special effects. These are things that are like, if let's say your power set is, let's go with Laurel for a quick sec. Her power set is more equipment based. Grenades are a power set ability, right? So let's say you want the area of effect special effect. Grenades have an area of effect. There is a rule to how area of effect works in this. You write that in special effect. This tool set can utilize area of effect. Even though it's like, well, one of these is a grenade. Cool, it's a grenade. What about the gun? Does it use area of effect too? Sure, you spray a whole bunch of people. Right? So these are effects that are global to any power in that set. Limit is, back to the Superman example, kryptonite. If in the presence of kryptonite, this power no longer functions. Right? That's what a limit is. The player or the GM can trigger a limit. If a limit is triggered, if it's one of those kinds that can be triggered, you get a plot point for doing it. And that power set is not usable until the limit has been removed. And usually it's at the end of a scene. Some limits are just more situational. Some of them are 1s and 2s count as hitches. Those are pretty bad, right? So those are examples of limits, but that affects anything in that particular set. Make sense? Pretty straightforward?
Yep.
Talents are just special effects, just free special effects. They don't need to be tied to anything. They're tied to you, the player. So if you want something like hold my beer, watch this, and I have basically taken every TV trope you can possibly imagine. That I maybe I'm missing a few, but there's a bunch. I will take suggestions. But I have tried to take as many TV tropes as conceivably possible and turn them into talents. Like, we're all gonna die is a talent.
Not
if
the
you
face.
take it, I think what it is if I get a plot point, you get a plot point. Right?
Okay.
That player will get a plot point. Like things like that. And they're all thematically appropriate to the trope that they've been based off of, right? So have fun with it. That's kind of the idea. So there's the descriptor, an activation, and an effect. Super easy. Done. That's it. Last page, not really character specific. This is an episode tracker. Write the names of episodes on the sheets. That's your experience. An episode, now technically speaking, and there's a couple different ways to do this. Technically speaking, in the game rules, you cannot spend the experience that a session has given you until you reference that episode in a game. I'm not going to play it that way. If between sessions you would like to spend experience, you check off that session name, and that's how many you have, one experience per session. Just write them all down and track them here, right? The thing that I like to do, though, is at the beginning of every session, I will ask if anyone spent experience. If the answer is yes, you tell me what it is. You tell the group what it is you spent experience on. And if you could tie it into one of the episodes you used, you will get a free plot point for that episode.
Okay.
Also, good RP will give you plot points too, but
Delicious plot points.
you use them for everything, yeah. Okay.
Oh, that's
And then
useful.
the bottom there is an XP spend helper. The last thing I'll tell you has nothing to do with your sheets. How you use your sheets. Right? Every time you do a roll, you take a die from they're called prime sets. The attributes is a set. Only one die from each set is eligible in a particular roll. You cannot use two attributes in a roll. Right?
Makes sense.
So one attribute. Skills and specialties is a set. So one of those dice. Distinction is a set. Relationships is a set. Gear is a set, and powers is a single set. A single power is a set. So if you have a power, a skill, a relationship, an item, and a distinction that's all relevant to what you're doing, you're rolling 7 dice
Okay.
without any other modifiers. Doesn't matter. You're rolling 7 dice, and that's totally fine. And you take the 2 highest numbers to create the number that you are going to say, here's what I do it by. So if I'm rolling, let's say I'm rolling something with 3 dice. Let's say I have a 6, an 8, and a 10 for simplicity's sake. Okay, I roll a 6, an 8, and a 10 for ease of use for numbers. Okay, I rolled absolutely the highest possible. I add the 2 highest together. Those dice are now used. You put them off the side. Okay, so the 8 and the 10, I rolled an 18. Well, you need an effect die. The effect die is a way that you can succeed at something and have something bad still happen, or fail and still have a benefit. There is a level of that in this game as well. So if I use those 2 highest numbers, the only die I have left is a d6. So I have an 18 with a d6 effect die. Well, if the person I'm going up against has a lower number, but has a d8 effect die, sure, you don't get dealt any damage, but maybe they give you a complication. They break your arm in the process. Right? Or if I go to kick open a door, I've kicked the door open, but I cut my leg open in the process. And now I have a gash that needs some tending to. Right? That's how that works. So if I only need an 8 to succeed, perhaps what I would do instead is I'll take the 6 and the 8, make a 14, have a d10 effect die. Not only will I succeed, I will succeed and gain a benefit at the same time. That's the thing that's the interesting part about how the players can really affect their results. So you create your own dice pools if you think things are relevant, and you determine your own results as you roll stuff. That's where it gets a little bit messy. But that's why the answer to most things you ask will probably be yes, because you're only adding 2 dice together anyway. Okay. That was a lot of me explaining stuff, but that is literally the entire game, other than like what are special effects and nuances and stuff like that. So before we start going through the actual application process, does anybody have any questions?
I'm really liking the thematic quality of this because I'm going to make shit up.
Yes. Absolutely
I'm
make shit up.
And I'm going to purposely fail a lot of stuff if I can find a way for it to be funny.
And that's correct.
I'm excited that the magic is not going to be convoluted, because that was my challenge.
Yeah.
That was
the other benefit of
insane
this,
for me.
and I've always run into this with games, is certain classes, when you have a combat-heavy game system, combat-based skills are more valuable. A tech is just as efficient and usable as a combatant, as a mage, as a scholar, as a politician. The game testing group that I run this with, we don't have lots of fights. There's lots of political intrigue, though. It became a very political heavy game because political encounters are exactly the same as combat encounters. You just deal with more strain than wound. Right? Once you have been dealt maximum strain, you cannot continue the argument anymore.
I just hate him so much.
Exactly. And you walk away going, but what if? So that's the other thing about it. So absolutely, I love that you brought that up. It's like using any other item in the game.
Right?
Yeah, I always hated having to go through a character creation process and being like, well, if I had known that those two things would work synergize together, I'm obviously going to synergize, right? Like I'm not, I'm not a power gamer by nature. It's like I mean, if there's a way to fuck up the character.
Yeah.
But you're going to create synergy if you can. You're not just going to do weird synergy things.
You're not a fucking like a neurologist or an alienist that's good at firearms. That's just weird.
Wow, that was oddly.
That's just called being. That's called being human.
That's called
I mean-
diversity.
None of us are human.
Daniel Jackson could use a heck of a firearm, and he was an archaeologist.
Yeah, that's fair.
A heck of a
And
fire.
then became a
That's an
physicist.
interesting company there. The heck of us. Sounds like a proper gun company.
really heckling here.
Thank you for listening to Spacers. The content that you saw today was just more or less the recap of the rules that you as the listener going through this on either your podcast service or on YouTube can kind of understand the rules as we continue on with the story. However, the character choice and actual character creation took an additional 3 hours after this. So, for additional content for our creative collaborators and our dedicated dilettantes over on Ko-fi, and if you want to watch an additional 3 hours of us kind of just sifting through rules and getting character specifics, you'll be able to find that content there. Our next episode will air Tuesday, July 2nd. The Call Arc 5 Session 0 will have the original gang returning next week on June 25th. Both shows will air at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on YouTube with a live chat premiere before going up in all of our audio services 1 hour later. As usual, we'll thank all of our donators over on Ko-fi, including Noah, 3 Slugs in a Trench Coat, Autumn Beamer, Ed Lore, TJ, Josiah, Rosa, Tyler, The Weejay, Austin, James, Maddie Cowgill, Blizzard Warning, Sydney, Baba Yaga, Shadow Rose, and Preston. And again, a huge congratulations to Baba Yaga for being the winner of the last dice raffle we did just last week. Your players for tonight were Elizabeth Bells, Janessa Coles, Lindsay Delansky, and Derek Snow. Don't worry, Bailey Yarkey is going to be joining the actual show itself. We had to do some scheduling stuff, and she'll be a part of Session 1. She had a Session 0 separate from the rest of the gang. And I was your GM for the night, Zach Barrett. By this point, we no longer have Rob babysitting us to make sure that we stay on track. So hopefully we don't go too far off track. We miss having you telling us how to smarten up, and we hope that you're having fun in your new digs. Have a good night, everyone, and we'll see you next time.